2025. Let's go. Queued up there. Muzzle chat warriors. What? Come on. Just verifying. Our stream is working. Looks good. I sure hope y'all are having a fantastic day. Can we address the elephant in our skies? Can we even afford not to any longer? I'm excited to dive into this one, folks. Just got a whole bunch of amazing sources on this very topic. And we're going to listen to a conversation of these well-educated individuals that have spent years on this topic. Okay. And the sources that they share with us, oh my gosh, not only are they going to be extremely informational, but they give us information and groups of individuals, legal groups even, that are tackling this on our behalf. All they need is our support to truly be successful in their mission. So with that, I tell you what, I know that it is not my job to wake people up or save the world. I know this, but I also know what we are capable of together. There is only one reason why they are fighting against this type of information, like today's episode, from actually getting out. They do not want us healthy. And the very attack that they have deployed is directly impacting our abilities to even acknowledge that this attack is even taking place. Every day that this continues, it will only become that much harder to properly address this type of issue. Think about it. Why have they ramped up this attack as of late and ramping it up more and more? If we're being honest with ourselves and we're actually observing the skies, it's only getting worse. So it kind of brings up another question. Why are we and people not willing to actually look into this? Why would folks rather believe the Google narrative and all the sources censoring the truth and facts and lie to themselves? Didn't we have enough during the pandemic? Haven't these sources shown their colors? For frick's sakes, the safe and effective, demonizing real protocols that helped our health, but yet we're going to believe those same sources on this elephant in the sky. That's lunacy. I just pray that somehow I'm able to come about this in a way that, I don't know, raises the alarm within individuals to where it at least lights that spark to where people check this out for themselves. Don't take my word for it. Don't take the gentleman's word for it. They're presenting a lot of amazing information for us here today. But it's a tricky place to be coming from, because there's a scale, kind of with what I already covered on knowing this isn't my job to waken people up or save the world and address these things. However, as a man, freedom isn't free. And there is a responsibility and a duty for freedom, for health, to get engaged. Because if we don't, evil wins when good people do nothing, or good men, women do nothing. So it's crucial we absorb that and do what we can do. But there is a balance, because ultimately, with the humbling, it is in God's hands, but we're not to negate our responsibilities to our fellow men. And the main reason I'm excited about exposing this information and what the truth is, what's really happening behind the curtain, is because I personally believe that this would be so easily handled and we could put a stop to it simply if folks would watch this very episode and get involved in very simple ways. There's a whole multitude of paths we could take at the point we understand and did our research. And it could be showing up ourselves, putting funds towards a lot of these groups and organizations, or even supporting me in a platform like this, because at this point I want to step off so much of the other. I mean, I'm open. Your story matters, and any guest that wants to come forward and sound the alarm on anything, I'm welcoming that. But as far as I'm concerned, unless I feel really impressed on a given topic, I want to really hone in on our health. I do believe this is one of the great hurdles that is allowing us to be dormant and allow the continuum of these type of warfare tactics to continue to this day. So enough from me. Let's dive into the information. Welcome to America. So this right here, America for a cleanatmosphere.com. All the links to all this information is down below. Hopefully I even pick up more going through this content. But I have notes, folks. Notes upon notes upon notes. I watched another documentary last night that I'm going to be going through here in the near future, and I filled maybe 8 pages of notes. It's just incredible. But it's alarming, it's saddening, but then again, it's a beautiful opportunity to accept and acknowledge the world we're living in, because burying our heads in the sand on this and just accepting this type of tactic, that's not a solution. It's not even an option to ignore this anymore. It's time to address. It's beyond time to address this elephant in the room. So let's just go over some of the facts right here. Let's turn this down a bit. So in Tennessee, right here, SB 2691 and HB 2063, prohibiting geoengineering and chemtrail spraying experiments passed in Tennessee. The governor signed it into law. Right here in Ohio, they're trying to pass bills or legislation banning chemtrails. Also in South Carolina. This is great news. Also in Kentucky, Minnesota, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Illinois. We need all 50 states. So this information, once again, is in the link right below. Let's play this short clip. It's 3 minutes. I think I'm going to have it a little sped up here. Let's play this and then just hang in there. Don't go anywhere. The conversation between these two men coming up is so powerful. You do not want to miss it.
The bill to ban climate engineering is now the law. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee has now signed into law the recently approved Senate and House legislation to ban climate engineering over the state of Tennessee. Here's an excerpt from the legislation. Prohibits the intentional injection, release, or dispersion by any means of chemicals, chemical compounds, substances, or apparatus within the borders of the state into the atmosphere with the express purpose of affecting temperature, weather, or the intensity of sunlight. This is the first bill of its kind to be passed into law. Governor Bill Lee, Senator Steve Sutherland, Representative Monty Fritz, and all their co-sponsors each deserve our deepest gratitude for their heroic actions in the face of staunch establishment resistance to this critically important legislation. Testimony from experts like Dr. Denise Sibley and Dr. David Perry was essential to this effort, along with all the help from behind the scenes from so many others.
Heavy metals have been detected in rainwater samples, such as strontium, barium, aluminum, and sulfur. We do not consent to this experimentation on our atmosphere and our citizens. We do not consent to the intentional blocking of the sun through the use of particulate aerosols and heavy metals. Blocking the sun would affect our crops with potential famine, deforestation, and blocking of vitamin D production by humans, which is a major determinant of our natural immunity.
Insufficient sun exposure has become a real health problem. The reason that the honeybees are going away is because of the microcosm that they live in is affected by these aerosols.
Other states have tried unsuccessfully to pass similar legislation, but the Tennessee bill draft should now become the standard as it was carefully crafted in the most straightforward and effective form.
There is a widespread documentation of attempts to manage weather and manage climate, manage solar impact upon the earth with chemicals and compounds and apparatus. Intentional injection, release, or dispersion by any means of chemicals, chemical compounds, substances, or apparatus within the borders of this state into the atmosphere with the express purpose of affecting temperature, weather, or the intensity of sunlight is prohibited.
Though this desperately needed effort to ban the ongoing atmospheric aerosol spraying operations won't halt the...
Look at that, folks. It's like maximum contamination is coming out of the back of this aircraft. How could we even improve upon that if we were trying? Okay, it's not coming. Yes, you look at the patents, you look at all the overwhelming information. It's very cleverly done. The majority of these bats and solvents and solutions and chemical compounds and the way they've engineered it, it is infusing this into the actual exhaust of the aircraft. So the majority of it, sleekly under deception, is seemingly coming out the back of an engine, which now visually, okay, it deceives us to not even look into this information. Please, if anyone's just drinking the narrative from all those sources that lied to us and lied to us and lied to us and continue to lie to us and censor us and suppress us and infringe on our First Amendment, like, what are we doing? But this right here, we're very visual creatures. And this particular image, which so many others, it has it coming out of the wingtip, it has it coming out of the tip of the tails, and right here, there's clearly a bunch of nozzles along the wingtip with a little momentum. Obviously, it's just creating this blanketing. This says it all. This is 100% worth your time in looking into, because once you realize that, in fact, yes, we are being sprayed, the question now shifts into, what are they spraying us with? And without our consent, why don't we have a seat at that table? There's only one nefarious reason for all that and all the censorship, and we'll dive into that here personally. I'll share a censorship situation I just dealt with yesterday and this morning. Unbelievable. Why? I mean, think about it for a second. If they weren't doing this, they wouldn't censor our actual conspiracy at that point. They would just sit back and laugh. Because what damage could we do if they're not doing anything? The only reason they have to censor and suppress this information is because they're doing it, and to allow them to continue to do it. Full stop. Every day. And that's why I believe with these free speech platforms, they're ramping it up like never before. Because they can see, with all this other legislation standing up, their window before it's fully exposed is closing. So it's impacting all of us, and the information as to how impactful it is, it's extremely alarming and absolutely detrimental. I get it. It's hard to acknowledge, and who wants to live in a world like that? Me personally, I would rather all this not be true. But when you look into it, the facts, the data, the information, it's overwhelmingly clear. It is just clear. So what's the better scenario? To continue to lie to ourselves and just ignore it? Or actually, it's worth. That's why I want to say, like, gosh dang it. If there was a stranger that came in your home and poisoned your loved ones, your children, would you not do anything at that point? Would you not do anything? Well, there is a stranger, and it is coming into your home, and it is poisoning your loved ones and children. So my question is, why are we not doing anything? Why are we believing this unbelievable narrative of contrails, water, vapors, and ice crystallization that ends up spanning the whole sky, dissipating, blanketing, blocking out the sun? And all that compound ends up down here on Earth with us. We breathe it in, we touch it, ends up in our food sources, our water sources. There is no hiding from this. There's nowhere on the planet you can hide from this type of war tactic. And it is a war tactic when you look at the deception and the fact that they're all this. We cannot stop with just the chemtrails. We need to gain full transparency from our governments, our world leaders, our elites. We cannot allow any of them to pull the wool over our eyes to this degree. Otherwise, evil things will take place. But look at this image. It's undeniable. And you could see interruptions
contamination
with
over
the spray.
Tennessee or anywhere else. It absolutely will bring long
Look at
overdue
that.
awareness to this most dire issue of what is occurring in our skies without public knowledge or consent. If we
Yeah, that's water vapors. That's ice crystallization. Nothing to see here. Are you insane? Really? Look at this. It's maximum dump. How else could we put more out back of this aircraft? Unbelievable.
Fully exposed to climate engineering operations, we will have a very real potential to bring them to a halt. This effort will take all of us. Please, make your voice heard, make every day count. This is Dane Wigington from geoengineeringwatch.org.
Thank you. That is an amazing. And oh, the dimming right here, folks. That is the documentary we're going to dive into. If you just want to dive into it without my commentary, please click on this second link in the description below, and it's right below this video. And I believe it is a solid, hour and 56 minutes. In the data they bring forward, it's undeniable. They go over the patents. They go over the programs that have been rolled out through human history. They go over the testing, what particles. They go over how it is negatively impacting to all cellular biological life, plant life included, animal life included. So yes, the food we eat between the vegetarian side of the spectrum, but also the animal and meat spectrum. There is no aspect to this existence this method is not negatively impacting. And yes, I get it. Why would they do this? Those are all healthy questions. We can have all those discussions. And a lot of these experts that have been doing this for decades, that's what's interesting. How is it we will believe lies or the liar's narrative over doing any real research, even a few hours? And there's individuals that had dove into this, whistleblowers, credible, well-decorated individuals from doctors, scientists, military folk, commercial airliners, private sector that have all whistleblowed. You know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll dive into all this, but I'm just excited. I know we can easily address this. Why wouldn't we at least put legislation into practice banning like Tennessee has? Okay, so if it's not happening, then what do they have to lose on us passing legislation, making it felony offenses and upwards of $500,000, which has been successful at this point, felony offenses and $500,000 per occurrence? If they're not doing it, then let's at least achieve that status, okay? Then we're not harming them, right? Because they're not doing it, right? Let's get there and go from there. So the two clips, I'm going to show you these two clips that I recently just did this morning right here and last night, and they both immediately got taken down under authenticity, and then the fine, when I dive in deeper, it's under misinformation. Let's really wrap our heads around this. They wouldn't be censoring it if they weren't doing it. Period. Give me another logical explanation as to why. Oh, there's so much amazing information, things to look into, just common sense that, wow, when we actually think about it deeper, it becomes unbelievable as to how easily we are manipulated and willing to not do our research. So right here, removed, so yep, integrity and authenticity, but when you do go deeper, it's misinformation. So not only did it immediately get pulled down, I received a new strike. Unbelievable. So I'm about to lose this TikTok account. And I did an appeal. I wrote up, I stated the facts that I could easily prove. Why are you censoring truth? Why will TikTok not respond to its tyrannical censoring? And to this day, out of the dozens of videos and clips they have censored and they've pulled down, they haven't responded with any reason ever. So you could see right here, community guideline violation. I should have screenshotted with the two of them now because it's over the same topic. Video removed. Yep, right there. Misinformation. Unbelievable. They are the misinformationists. They are the propagandists. So let's just play these two clips and then we'll get into today's conversation. Water vapors and ice crystallization due to these jet engines. Like that spray. We're being sprayed. So the question becomes what? I mean, look at that image. Once again, the engines are inward. This is an aircraft that's spraying from the tips of the wings. Explain that under their definition of water vapors and ice crystallization. It's not even coming out of the engines. How does that happen? Let's use our own common sense. And there's incredible visual evidence backing all this and how harmful it is. But it is happening. The actual scientists, the actual government, military is all, there's patents you can follow on all this stuff. They've talked about it in their meetings. It's public. So there's nothing conspiratorial about this. I mean, it's crazy to me that individuals are more so willing to lie to themselves, take the Google narrative, and just rid themselves of any responsibility, any like actual knowing, shoot really the messenger, actually see the truth of it. And wouldn't the truth of it potentially lead to the actual solutions? That's what we want. That's what all we want to get to. Let's get the bans in place, the felony offenses, the fines in place to, I mean, I believe that won't even stop them for some time. We now will have to, I don't know what lengths we need to get to. I mean, for me at this point, I'm literally questioning at what point do civilians achieve a ground to air defense? That's literally where I'm at with it. And at the point they're losing these aircraft in the skies, I believe that is going to stop them a lot quicker than even legislation, because now we got so many of these flights. And if you look at all the whistleblowers and whatnot, they're not even on the flight registry. They're like ghost craft, UFO status even. Not that I believe in aliens, or it's just an unidentified flying aircraft at that point, not in the flight registry. So who has that type of classification? It's clearly on a needs-to-know basis in the military. It's also been whistleblowed through commercial flights and also the private sector. This one's even more horrific because I actually watched my tongue considering, and I heavily edited this, considering the other one that got banned. And I was utterly shocked when this one got pulled down as well. You tell me what is misinformation about this when I'm more so questioning if this is happening. Give this a listen. Control the narrative. If in fact it is negative to all biological life in our lives and our children and our loved ones, not even knowing whether it's actually taking place or not, wouldn't we classify that as warfare? So yeah, think about that for a second. If in fact it's happening, if in fact it's spray, and if in fact it is poisonous and toxic to us, if that's all true, how would we not come to the conclusion? Would you come to the conclusion that that is a war tactic? That's warfare playing out right here? I don't know who with common sense wouldn't classify that as a war tactic. So now let's just really dive in and find out whether or not it is being done and whether or not it is harmful to us and our loved ones. If it's happening, wouldn't it be more important to address that than trying to fund breakthroughs on the attacks? Like we would medicine dog chasing this hell. It's just insanity. Yeah. Yes, we need to focus on our health, but we need to stop. If this is happening, it dead in its tracks. It's not just Florida, folks. Right here, legislation being passed in New Hampshire, Tennessee. All right, we get the point. Why is that content being taken down? I truly believe this is the disconnect. I love the image for today's episode. If you don't see this as a serious problem, then the chemtrails are in fact working. And I love this image so much that you really, let's not get off topic, but any of the other tactics that are diminishing our health, you could just visualize, the water issue, the food issue, Western medicine. But enough of all that. I cannot wait to hear these two gentlemen. It is fantastic. It's just 53 minutes. We'll put it at 1.25. And gosh, when they get into it, it is incredibly telling. I love y'all. I know this is an easy solution. This is easily handled. Frankly, we just need more people aware. And with that, naturally, we will become the solution we need. And all we need is pen to paper versus cleaning our water. That means a lot more steps need to happen. We're just banning this from taking place in our skies. And the win to this, I don't even believe we can fathom as to how positively impactful that day would actually become. Because we can't even fathom how negatively impacting it is now.
Welcome back, friends. Welcome back to Solutions Watch. I am James Corbett of CorbettReport.com. It is July of 2024, and today we're going to be talking about solutions around a problem that I know many people in the Corbett Report audience are familiar with, and that seems like one of those intractable problems. What can we possibly do about it? Well, let's find out. And today we're going to talk to somebody who is quite knowledgeable about this subject, both the problem and potential solutions, and someone that should be familiar to Corbett Reporteers out there who have paid attention to the archives. Specifically, I'm talking about Peter Kirby, who you might remember from
so awesome.
1013 on the history of chemtrails back in 2015. And also, we recorded a conversation in July of 2016 about his book, The New Manhattan Project, or Chemtrails Exposed, A New Manhattan Project. But let's bring him back on the program today to talk about what he has learned in the intervening years. Peter Kirby, good to talk to you again.
James, it's a great honor.
All right, as I say, it has been, 8 years since we've talked? And obviously a lot of information has come out in the intervening years, CIA admissions and open admissions of various tests of various geoengineering projects, etc. Again, you could fill an entire book with what has happened just in the past several years. And so let's start by introducing yourself, your work. For people who don't know or didn't catch our previous conversations, who are you, how and where and why did you get into this subject, and what did you write about in your book?
Okay. Yeah, I first got into chemtrails over a decade ago, and to make a long story short, I became aware of the fraud that is 9/11, and I asked myself, okay, what else have they been up to? You know, what else has the old dinosaur media been lying to us about? And so I turned to the new media, and I saw all these amazing stories, and chemtrails was just one of them. And I kind of glossed over it at first because I thought, that's crazy. Why would they be spraying things out of planes? That just wrecks everything. They're going to spend all this money to spray things out of planes so that they can destroy all their own stuff, But as time went on, I started seeing more evidence, specifically the 2010 documentary, What in the World Are They Spraying? When I saw the scientific evidence for this, that was what convinced me. And I said to myself, this is real and this is absolutely horrible and absolutely unacceptable. And ever since then, it's been a passion of mine, and it really started out as just solely as a passion, as something like, okay, I'm going to expose this. I'm going to do my best to bring the proper information to the public so that they understand that this is going on. Because I figured, well, as soon as anybody knows that this is going on, they're going to find it.
Guys, just absorb. We cannot afford to ignore this elephant any longer. I'm trying to bring the value. Already have vetted this interview. That was another documentary right there that he mentioned that I hadn't notated. So I'm notating it now, and I want to find it. I want to add it into futuristic things. If it's heavy hitting enough and very informative, then we'll dive into that into the future. But I want to create the hub and give enough value, enough sources. All the links are in the description below. It is so crucial. We cannot afford to ignore this anymore. It saddens my heart that men were on the front lines over a decade ago regarding this, and it's literally had to lead to where we can't even see the sun some days to question. Yeah, we can't allow it to get any worse than it already is. And why I am so personally passionate about this, with Lyme, with already a compromised immune system, I'm feeling like I'm having a hard time putting my thoughts into words, accessing my memory. I know this is directly limiting my ability to even show up and do this to a level I know I'm capable of. I just don't have access to that. And I'm seeing it as I'm really cognizant, paying attention to all my family, all my friends. Like, everyone is sick all the freaking time. What is causing that? Well, and that's why I feel this is so easily addressed, but it's in ways more important than other aspects, because you can't hide from this. At least with a shot in our arm, with illegal mandates, things like that, we had the choice to lose our job. We had the choice. We have choice with what food, or at least we can filter water, things of that nature to an extent. That's why this is so important. We cannot afford to ignore this elephant anymore.
It's totally unacceptable, and there'll be a groundswell against it and all this. But as you know, to this day, there's still maybe only 10 to 15% of the population that's even aware that this is going on. So, but in the meantime, I did have early successes. One of the things that made my name was I found the California Air Resources Board data on their website showing the elevated levels of aluminum and barium in the ambient atmosphere, charts that were showing elevated levels from the
ambient air. It doesn't, scientifically proven, it doesn't end up there through any natural means. Fact. In fact, in nature, aluminum has never been found in on the nanoscale, ever. But we're pulling, so it doesn't even exist in nature, but they're finding nanoparticles in the air. So there's only one way it gets there.
The mid 90s, the mid 90s is where I later learned that the domestic large scale spraying operations started, and the levels of aluminum and barium were going up and up and up until 2002, when they stopped sampling for it for some reason. And I never really got a straight answer out of them as to why they did that. They said, oh, we switched over to another system and all this. That's all BS. When they saw those raising levels of aluminum and barium in the ambient atmosphere, they should have been ringing every alarm that they had, because in their own literature, they say none of this should be in the atmosphere at all. They classify aluminum and barium as toxins. And I took screenshots of these charts and I posted it online. I think this was what got me noticed with Activist Post. I was just posting in like forum websites and in comment sections and things wherever I could post. And I think it was probably the post on what I guess is still today. I haven't been there in a long time, but there's a forum website called Godlike Productions. And I think it was that posting that somehow Michael at Activist Post, he's the editor at Activist Post, got a hold of that and saw that and just published it. And he didn't even notify me of it. I just found it posted on this neat website that I thought was really cool. They had a lot of great stories on there. So then I contacted him, and then that's where that ball started getting rolling, because he wanted more stories on the chemtrail thing. So I kept on digging deeper and deeper. And then I did a big multi-year investigation into just the history of weather modification. And I came out with a paper called A History of the New Manhattan Project. That was during that investigation. I started seeing that this was an evolution or an outgrowth of the original Manhattan Project that produced the world's first atomic bombs. And so I felt like I was going out on a limb a little bit when I started calling it the New Manhattan Project. But since then, I found nothing but evidence to corroborate this. And it's been a long road. I've been doing this for over a decade. I started researching in about 2010. That was when the documentary came out that changed my mind. So it's been 14 years since then. And, I feel really good. This is what you're looking at here is the cover of the second edition of the book. There was a first edition in 2016 of the same title, Chemtrails Exposed, the New Manhattan Project, available exclusively on Amazon. And then in 2020 came the second edition. I think the second edition is much better than the first one. If you bought the first one, go ahead and buy the second one, because you'll be completely satisfied, because it's a complete revision and update of everything. And to this day, I don't have a whole lot of desire to change anything in this book that I released 4 years ago, because it's extremely solid. And I think it'll show people, the whole story, the who, what, when, where, why, and how of all this. After reading this book, I mean, I know for myself, after doing the research and writing it, I feel like I have a very thorough understanding of what exactly is going on here. Something that we didn't have in 2010. We were just barely cracking the surface in 2010. Guys like Dane and Michael Murphy, rest in peace, and Francis Mangels and Mauro Oliveira. We didn't know that they were plain spraying stuff, and that's about all we knew. But when you start digging into the history of weather modification, and you realize that the only reason that planes have ever dispersed materials at altitude is for weather modification, then you start connecting all the dots, and you start seeing how all the motives for it, all the history of it, how it came out of the original Manhattan Project. And what they're doing is they're using, a lot of the time when they talk about nuclear this and that, they're actually talking about weather modification. It's actually often a euphemism. The word nuclear, these in government speak, is often a euphemism for weather modification. I heard Trump talking the other day, and John Trump is Donald's uncle. Is in my book, because he was the guy who looked over Nikola Tesla's posthumously recovered documents, along with some other guys that are mentioned in the book. But Trump, the guy who's running for president, was talking about how his uncle was the longest serving professor at MIT, and he was into nuclear. I didn't know that he was into nuclear. I knew that he had something to do with weather modification, but I didn't know that he had anything to do with nuclear. So I mean, like when he was saying that on the speech the other day, I'm saying to myself, he's using the word nuclear as a euphemism for weather control. And so that got me thinking that, okay, his uncle was involved in this pretty deeply as well. But yeah, there's a lot of information in the book, and I'm flogging it again. I flogged it when it first came out, promoted it as best as I could. And this brings us to why I'm here today, is because there's a new movement afoot. And this is why I'm on Solutions Watch with James Corbett, because there are now all these bills moving through state legislatures, particularly in the East. And this has spurred the mainstream media into life. And I've seen a little uptick in book sales, and there's more interest. I look at the comment sections on these articles about these new bills that we're about to talk about moving through legislatures in the East, and one of them's already been signed into law in Tennessee. And I see the comment section, and man, it's just like an avalanche of awareness that's coming up. And I see this as a great opportunity for us to come forward. Us, I mean, like me, Dane Wigington, Jim Lee, you, anybody, my editor, Activist Post, anybody who's been into this issue all this time. This is an opportunity for us to say, hey, look, we have everything here. Look, here's the evidence. You guys are into this now. Maybe you're not aware of all this stuff that we've been working on for all this time. So, I'm eager to get this information out to the people, and I'm eager to talk about the solutions that are now coming forward.
As you say, this is a wonderful opportunity, if for no other reason than, hey, it's difficult to dismiss and poo-poo all those crazy tinfoil hat-wearing nutters when you have all of these states literally, with this legislation, banning chemtrails. Wait, I thought they didn't exist. I thought Biden was a totally sane person. It's the same liars who lie about everything. Well, people are starting to recognize that. So, okay, I don't want to do a disservice to the years and years and years of research that you've done on this and all of the information. And I remember, for example, reading about John Trump and his connection to this and just other mind-blowing facts that you've accrued over the years. So I will direct people not only to your book, but also to activistpost.com, where you are now a staff writer. And I know they always post your the abstract podcast that you do, talking about all the new developments that are coming out, because there's so much information coming out in this space. But you raised the specter of a recent, what caught my attention in my eye for a potential solutions watch was your abstract episode 29, 8 states banning chemtrails? What on earth is going on? And I will link up the post where not only do you have the actual podcast itself, but you have a breakdown of all of the states and the legislation involved. Tennessee, Illinois, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Kentucky, Rhode Island, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania, which is interesting and amazing. Tell us about this development.
Yeah.
That tells us, we could stop the episode right there. It's 100% happening. It's 100% damning. I mean, we're going to go through more of the information. We're going to finish up this very interview, but that in and of itself, it's taking place. I get it's hard to fight back everything that's been spoon-fed. We are easily, let's look in the mirror and be like, I am easily manipulatable. We don't want to admit that and that. What it's the pride, the ego, everything else that's being programmed into us that's keeping us to our own detriment, not addressing these real threats, these real issues. Why is the pH in our soil dying and dropping? Plant life, animal life, insects, our lives. It's not coincidental. It's just 1 + 1 = freaking 2.
Yeah, I forget exactly where I heard about. I just kind of monitor stories on chemtrails. I think every once in a while I go to news at Google, news.yahoo, and I just search the term chemtrails, and maybe that's how I came across the story, or it was posted maybe on SGT Report or something like that, or maybe even Activist Post. Someone had written a story about it. And for some reason, at first, when I saw that story about Tennessee banning chemtrails, it kind of just went over my head. And I thought, no, actually, I did think, that's kind of interesting, whatever. And then a day or two later, I'm like, hold on a second. Tennessee just banned chemtrails. What's going on here? Let's get into that. There is a movement in California that's going on as well involving Renette Senum. So we can get into that too. I have some notes for that one. You want?
That might be one for the West Coast that we need to jump on board. So Arizona, Nevada, Utah, we all should jump on board and bring that into our states and support that passing. So it's just going to create momentum in the right ways. We're not alone in this, which is fantastic. I would love to lead the charge or support or whatever to our capacities, help just get clean skies again, clean air again, 100%, whatever. If you have any input, please help direct. I want to listen. This is a communal effort between all of us. You could drop it in the comments below. You could reach out to me personally through email at unmuzzledchat@gmail.com. I'd look forward to hearing from you.
I wanted to talk about that one as well, but let's get into these bills, mainly in the East. The Tennessee bill is a done deal as of April 11th. The governor, I think his name was Bill Lee, signed into law a bill that bans the dispersion of weather-modifying substances. It makes a violation of this law a misdemeanor with
That's
a $10,000 per day per violation
Better than nothing.
fine. And it went into effect on July 1st. So it is now in effect. I contacted there was a guy who was behind the sponsor of the bill, a Tennessee lawmaker. I forget his name, but I contacted his office and they said, yeah, we've had a lot of interview requests. We'll put your name on the list, but don't expect anything because the legislature has gone home for the summer recess. And this is what's going on in all of these legislatures, as far as I can tell. They go home for a summer recess, and I don't think they're actually going to convene until next year. Any of these legislatures in the East. California is one of the few states, I think, with a full-time legislature.
What?
But anyway, so there was Tennessee, and it was kind of mild in its language, pretty straightforward. The way the Tennessee bill is written, you might think that there's really not going to be anything to come of it. But you start looking at these other bills that are in the pipeline, such as New Hampshire. There was actually one before, and we're going to do this in chronological order of when the bills first came out. And the first one actually to come out was something in Illinois that came out in January of last year. And that one was an unsuccessful trial run. It really didn't go anywhere. I think it was kind of a poorly written, but I think they were, just trying to see what they could get away with. And that was just kind of a dry run kind of.
I've been told not to address, people dropping out, but there's no hiding from this. This is our skies, our air. If only folks would do their due diligence to understand the facts behind, yes, this is taking place, and how damning it is to our function, our health, our spiritual connections, life itself, the quality of life we're experiencing, we wouldn't just be ignoring it like we are. But you won't gain that conviction without doing the research. What is wrong with the disconnect? It pains me. We just want to excuse ourselves. What is it? Help me. What is it that's keeping people more so in the dark? That to the point they would rather believe a convenient lie over an inconvenient truth. We address an inconvenient truth, we got brighter days ahead, quite literally, but to every aspect of life. It's so crucial that we seize the opportunity, the moment. This is so damning. It wreaks havoc to every aspect of life. It's hard for me to really dive into without you got to spend the time. You got to spend the time to truly understand it. But we would be genuinely up in arms. We could end this today if enough of us, if this would go viral enough, if we'd set down. But ultimately, it's so profound that when you really spend the time, you have a realization that everything else in life, in a way, is meaningless with this level of warfare happening. Truly meaningless. Everything that mattered to me, even my job, all these other aspects to life, truly were meaningless with this level of warfare taking place, stealing our function, among so many other aspects. This is the greatest threat. Real educated, well-decorated individuals, experts, have said this is truly the greatest threat we're facing and our globe is facing, short of nuclear cataclysm. And we're sweeping under the rug. It's not my problem. It is your problem. You live under the skies too. It's all of ours. Time to take our roles serious. Let's continue.
Thing, but there was a bill in Illinois. It was unsuccessful. But then New Hampshire came out with something, a bill, and New Hampshire was the one that came out with this first kind of template for a bill that other states have since followed. Other states such as South Dakota, Kentucky, Rhode Island, and Minnesota. We're going to talk about those as well. But let's talk about this New Hampshire bill. The New Hampshire bill was also kind of another experiment, because I've heard that they've actually gone back to the drawing board and are doing some significant reworking of the bill. This was one of the latest videos that I watched with the people who are responsible for the bill, talking about it in front of some committee there in New Hampshire. But what's really interesting is that this bill is a template for other bills that have since arisen, and this one has significant teeth.
Yes.
We're talking about felony penalties of $500,000 and 2 years in prison per violation.
Let's double that. Let's make them $1 million violations up to 100 years in prison. If they are caught putting substances in our skies that is harmful on any level, even to an ant, 10 years, 100 years, life in prison. But it's all of us. It's impacting all of us. I got 4 citrus trees out back that are dying. The grapefruit's dang near dead. I had a mature pine that's probably 2 foot in diameter die last year. I even have a larger pine out back that's on its way out. I've had an arborist come by and look at everything, and he initially thought it was beetles, but when we took down that tree in front, yeah, there was no burrowing anything through. So we know this is flashing out our plants. This is so devastating. I just really hope and pray more people, for whatever reason, whatever it takes, lights that spark to just, you know what? I'm seeing this enough. Let's address this. I'm going to spend the time, because everyone's living under these skies. We're all being impacted. So whatever it takes to light that spark, for people to do their own due diligence, it's crucial. And it's important to assist individuals on sourcing information, because if all they're going to do is go to Google, if all they're going to do is go to the liars, the true propagandists, the ones, Barack Hussein Obama passed bills and legislation allowing them to lie to we the people and spew propaganda. Yeah, those aren't good sources. That's just going to perpetuate the lie on water vapors and ice crystallization. And that's not what we're seeing. There's a distinction between a jet with a contrail that's actually chasing the jet, and it doesn't linger all day, dissipate, span horizon to horizon. That, my friends, is a chemtrail. That is spray. And we'll go through all the information, not necessarily on this particular episode, but we're going to be pounding this nail all the way home. We're just going to beat it to oblivion until hopefully we gain the momentum necessary to address this issue. It's just got to be done. We can't ignore this elephant. I'm sorry, I'm repetitive. I apologize. I'll let them do more so the talking from here on out.
If you're caught spraying any substance that is spraying substances that are designed to modify the weather. And also there's some other aspects of this bill I would like to talk about. They also say that this bill in New Hampshire is also seeking to ban excessive electromagnetic energy,
yes,
which is the second component of what I call the New Manhattan Project. They spray the stuff out of planes and then they hit it with electromagnetic energy.
Yes.
So you have a binary weapon system that opens the doors to all kinds of different ways of modifying weather, all kinds of different things you can do. You can create any type, I believe you can create any type of weather that you want when you employ those two things. You know, the conventional cloud seeding industry just sprays silver iodide out of a plane, and that has an effect upon the cloud, makes it rain, or it suppresses hail.
I understand that the two things working in tandem here seems extreme to consider, but when you actually look at the evidence that's out there, it makes way more sense as to how the whole skyline ends up rippled like never before. Why the talking heads are now announcing with smiles on their faces, we've identified 8 different clouds. What? Like, there's new clouds being identified because new concoctions are being made and put there. And the impact with the frequency, the ground, HARP, big facilities, there's just so much information to dive in. I am getting ahead of myself. I need to rein it in. I love you guys. I'm just excited. I'm so ramped up to go through this information so we can really provide results and solutions we all so desperately need.
And that, but what I call the New Manhattan Project is this second generation of weather modification, whereby you're spraying something out of a plane and then hitting it with electromagnetic energy. So they're addressing the electromagnetic energy in New Hampshire, which is promising. And in this bill, they talk about states' rights. They say, it doesn't matter if the federal government is approving this. They say themselves, a lot of these people behind these bills, and in these bills themselves, they cite this report that's come out of the Biden White House, talking about how, it's basically the same old bull that they've been pushing for decades about how, solar radiation management, geoengineering, there's global warming, we're going to have to spray you, and all this, So
wow,
but they're saying it. In New Hampshire, they're saying, okay, well, you can say that at the federal level, but we have states' rights. And they go even further. They say, even if this is some kind of international thing, like let's say they don't mention the UN, but I think it's implied, if it's some international group that's giving some kind of okay to spraying stuff over their state, they say, no, we have states' rights. We're asserting our rights as a state, and you can't do this here. And they also start talking about a framework for investigating violations of the bill. Whereby you're supposed to contact a certain government group in different states. You're either contacting like county sheriffs with information regarding evidence of planes spraying things or excessive EM, or in different states that we're going to talk about, you're contacting like environmental offices of the state and going to them with photographs, rainwater samples, these type of things. And not only that, the bill talks about how the state is supposed to be actively seeking this type of evidence. They're supposed to be posting things on their website, and in other ways. I guess they talk about radio ads and things. I think where they say like you're required. The bill says the state is required to actively seek information about excessive EM and planes spraying things. And so this is really promising because these are the rainwater samples and the photographs and other types of this kind of evidence. We've been collecting these kind of things for years. Many years. I mean, there's people that have just mountains and mountains of this stuff. So that, so that was the first big breakthrough, this New Hampshire bill. And then other states have gone on to produce similar bills, such as the next one was South Dakota. And it's very similar to the New Hampshire bill, except in South Dakota, there are little different things. The one in South Dakota has already passed committee. This is the only one out of these other bills outside of the Tennessee bill that has passed committee. It passed committee 7-0.
Wow.
And the South Dakota bill is similar to the New Hampshire bill, but they do a few little different things where they talk about how local colleges and universities are to assist the county sheriffs or the environmental offices in the investigation. Especially in the way of excessive EM, it might be a little difficult to prove that you're being hit with excessive EM, but there are experts, especially in colleges, who understand how to discern these things. And then also it differs in that it says the South Dakota bill says that the governor can ground planes with the state National Guard if necessary. The governor can, or if they see a plane in the sky spraying things over South Dakota, the governor can call on the National Guard to ground the planes. This is in the bill.
That sounds
and then
amazing.
This bill, actually the South Dakota bill hasn't established any penalties yet. See, this is all in evolution. This is all in the works. This is all in the pipeline. This is all, being created as we speak. And then, so in Kentucky, this is another one that's following the template of the New Hampshire bill. But the differences in the Kentucky bill are that they get a little esoteric in the Kentucky bill. They start talking about masers, which is some type of laser. I'd have to ask Jenny. I'm not a science guy. Jenny is my science advisor who had a Q clearance with the Department of Energy. She's really great, and she's been on the different shows. Most usually she's on the Dave Zublik show. It's called the Wake Up Show now, something like that. She's been a regular on that show, and she was my science editor for my book. And but then they mentioned masers and they mentioned artificial intelligence in the Kentucky bill. And this is like completely esoteric because, these are the type of things that like my mind is just starting to wrap around these type of things, such as artificial intelligence and how that plays into all this, because this project is so huge. I think it's beyond the capacity of humans to manage it. You're going to need some kind of supercomputers with artificial intelligence to be able to like manage all these different things that are constantly going on. Weather is something that's often described as chaos, as a definition of chaos. And, how is any one human or group of humans supposed to stay on top of all that 24/7, 365? But yeah, they start in the Kentucky bill. They're talking about artificial intelligence is probably playing into these types of weather modification operations. And this one has teeth as well. The Kentucky bill has a $500,000 penalty per violation, and it's a felony as well. Per violation, you're paying $500,000. And every time you violate, every time you get a violation, that's another felony. They don't. I don't think they stipulate the felony penalties like prison and stuff yet, but they are calling it a felony. And then Rhode Island is another one following the New Hampshire template. And this one has also had no committee vote yet, just like the Kentucky bill, the one we were just talking about. But the Rhode Island bill, how it differs from the other.
Guys, just so you could see this yourself, the very first link in the description below, AmericansForACleanAtmosphere.com. You can go through a lot of this information. It's all laid out right in here. An amazing source. And there's more sources in here, like the zeroengineering.com. And then this was his page. The link is down below.
The other ones, it's largely the same as the Kentucky, South Dakota, New Hampshire, but it differs in that they note that the things that are sprayed out of the planes may be combustible agents. Now, this is another thing that's on the cutting edge of chemtrail research. I mean, this was something that I was really intrigued and amazed to find that I found a fire captain here in Northern California who says, yeah, absolutely, this stuff, he's on record in the new media. I forgot his name, but I think he's in my paper, Chemtrails, the Root Cause of the California Wildfires, something like that. I wrote an article about that some time ago. But he says, yeah, absolutely. The stuff that's sprayed out of the planes, it settles all over all the plants and everything, and is absolutely an accelerant.
Yeah.
It's combustible. Dr. James Marvin Herndon, the world famous PhD scientist who I've been working with, and he has a great presence in my book. He was kind of speculating about that because, James, if you have something that's put into a powder, it becomes combustible. You might not think that it would be combustible, such as like corn or soybeans or something like that. But if it's in a fine powder and just kind of floating around, you go inside of a. I don't want you to do this. Don't do this. I'm just kind of a hypothetical situation here. But if you go inside of like a grain silo and there's just kind of dust from the grain that was in that silo, and you light a lighter, the whole thing's probably going to blow up, because it just, when stuff is in the air and it's in very fine particulate form, it tends to be combustible. And the fire captain, if I'm not mistaken, he likened the chemtrail spray that settles all over everything to thermite. So we're talking incredibly combustible. And so in Rhode Island, they're talking about the Rhode Island bill. They're talking about combustible agents, and they're saying that it contributes to forest fires. The stuff that's being sprayed out of the planes. This one, the Rhode Island bill, has teeth, $500,000, $500,000 felony penalties, and/or at least 5 years imprisonment per violation. 5 years imprisonment and $500,000 per violation in Rhode Island.
Why wouldn't it be way more than that? We got to take this serious, because if it's not happening, what do they have to fear, right? But something that could be harmful to all humanity, all life, all plant life, life imprisonment. Are you freaking kidding me? You didn't get any consent. We really would need to unpack how detrimental it is to really hone in, wow, could this have been genocidal? Could this have been generationally impacting? Because we're not talking of, let's say, capturing, torturing a singular individual. This is all life on Earth. There should be millions of dollars of fines, and wow, this is so crazy, but this is so huge. I'm so glad to see so much legislation and the attempts of getting passed. We need to support this in all the states. If you're in any of these states, find out how you can help further this along sooner versus later. We need this to happen yesterday, right away. And the fact I haven't found anywhere in Arizona that is really, really taking this on is gravely concerning. If you know of any groups, please reach out to unmuzzledchat@gmail.com. Let's start those conversations. We're not reinventing the wheel here. It's just time to get the ball rolling locally and all over the USA. Yes, we have listeners all over the globe, freaking South America, Russia, China, all over the place. So this is something you should be taking up with your governments there as well. We got to stop this, because if this continues anywhere in the globe, it doesn't just linger. This travels all over. Some of these particles have been recorded to be up there upwards of a decade before it comes down. That's going to go all over the place. We got to end this all over the globe.
And then Minnesota has a basically one that's kind of the same template as the other ones, and that one has teeth as well. $500,000 felony. Why do I want to say felony? Felony. Fine. But yeah, and most of them have big, gnarly teeth that you don't want to mess with. And then there's in Pennsylvania has been recently introduced. At the time that I came out with the article on Activist Post and video on my channel, The Abstract on Rumble, at the time that it came out, that bill in Pennsylvania had not come out yet, but it had been promised by Doug Mastriano, who is a pretty famous politician who ran for governor, who was nominated got the GOP nomination for governor in 2022. He didn't win, but that Pritzker guy won, the big Jabba the Hutt looking character. But Doug Mastriano is MAGA, and he's all about it. And at the time, he had not released the bill when my article came out, but since then, the bill has come out. It's posted on the website, AmericansForACleanAtmosphere.com, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. These are the people behind all of this, okay? So, but when I saw that there was basically a template for these bills, and they were large, a lot of them were very similar, I said to myself, okay, there's something behind this. There's some kind of force driving these bills through, some kind of grassroots movement. And I'm not really sure how I found these people. Like I say, I just kind of poke around and just find things. There were actually a few years where I wasn't even poking around, but lately I've been poking around quite a bit. And I found this group. Their website is Americans for a Clean Atmosphere.com. And if you go to their website, it's a very simple website. And on the homepage, they list all of these bills. They say, here, look. Here's the one in, what did I say? Here's the one in Tennessee. Here's the one in Illinois. Here's the one in New Hampshire. They just go down the list. Here's the one in South Dakota. They give you the bill number. It's like HB 764 or whatever. They give you the numbers of all the bills so you can look them up all yourself. And I said to myself, okay, this is probably the people who are behind all of this, right? And just before we get into all this, I'd like to say they have recently posted on their website 3 new ones since my article came out. Ohio, Missouri, and South Carolina. I just saw these today. I didn't really have time to review all of this.
Breaking news here. And yeah, I just want to interject to say that people who are interested in this and looking at these actual bills, they're all linked up in your article, so people can follow that link from the show notes if they want, and they can find all of that. But as you say, Americans for a Clean Atmosphere has this information, including the brand new stuff. I want to get into sort of what you think the bigger project here is and what's really going on. But you did raise, sort of parenthetically there, something that I also wanted to talk about, which was Renette Senum and the Save Our Skies organization. Can you tell us about that and who and what that is?
Yes. Right. But before we jump into that, I just want to finish up with AmericansForACleanAtmosphere.com. They have a sister website. I have notes, so it's no problem getting back into Renette Senum. The AmericansForACleanAtmosphere.com has a sister website called ZeroGeoengineering.com. And it is excellent. It is excellent. It's right up there with the top anti-geoengineering websites, such as geoengineeringwatch.org and Jim Lee's website, climateviewer.com. ZeroGeoengineering.com. It's got tons and tons of great information on there. Rock solid stuff, not speculation. We're talking government reports, patents, just super credible everything. And I'm so impressed with what they're doing. And I'd like to say one more thing. I contacted them. I wanted to interview somebody from their organization. They took a few days. They got back to me. They said that they don't do interviews, but I think the audience deserves to know. And this name would probably be on the same email if an audience member emailed them themselves. There was a name that got back to me, Beverly Foster. Now that's a common name. So I tried going online and finding this person. It was not readily obvious as to who this person was, but apparently there's a person named Beverly Foster who is intricately involved in all of this. And also another place you want to go if you want to start getting involved here is the legal action tab at geoengineeringwatch.org. Now, in the West, fantastic. Okay, if you'll notice, all those states that we were talking about, those are all in the East or the Midwest. And but there's also a new movement in the West. There's also a new movement in California. I interviewed the woman who is at the focal point of this. Her name is Renette Senum. The interview is posted on my channel on Rumble, the abstract, and it was I think right next to the video. There was also an article on Activist Post. There's always an or almost.
By the way,
video on the.
If I get that off page, you can hear that okay, right? Because I have that playing in the background as I'm browsing that other page. That's something I haven't done in like studio testing. I can hear it, so I'm kind of assuming that you could hear it. Give me a thumbs up if you could hear that okay.
Abstract on Rumble, and I think the one about the 8 states banning chemtrails is right next to the Renette Senum interview. And I interviewed Renette Senum. I'm a little hot here, but I think that's probably a good thing. But I interviewed Renette Senum. And she's the former mayor of, she served 2 terms. She was on the city council, and then she served 2 terms as mayor of this city called Nevada City, which is up in what we call the gold country, like on the way to Tahoe from the Bay Area. And you say, okay, she was the mayor of a city. Yeah, politicians suck, so what? But she resigned. She was about to serve a 3rd term as mayor of Nevada City, and she talks about this in the interview. But right when she was about to take her oath of office was when COVID came down. And she saw all the massive fraud happening and how the government was just completely abandoning best practices and the law and little things like that. And she said to herself, you know what? I'm not doing this. I resign. Can you imagine that? That's what she did. She's quite amazing. And I think that she has a good shot at really getting something done here. And, she had been aware. I'll kind of encapsulate what the things that she talked about in their interview here. If you want the whole story, you can go look at the interview. But, she had been aware of chemtrails for some time. She said, 10 or 15 years. But when, she resigned her post and it was something, high on her list of priorities that she wanted to get done. So when she had some time on her hands, then she started digging in. She started, trying to figure out what we could actually do here to get these things stopped. And, if you're like me and everybody else out there, you say to yourself, yeah, we want the chemtrails stopped. We want this project to end. But there is low hanging fruit here. And her and the people she's working with, they've developed a strategy here. They have been in the process of preparing a lawsuit, but there are other things that they can do. And they're not necessarily, in fact, they're not going after the New Manhattan Project or geoengineering straight off. What they're first going for is the conventional cloud seeding business, the conventional cloud seeding industry,
Wow.
which has been around since 1947. They spray us with a toxic substance, silver iodide, routinely, not only from planes, but from ground generators. This is a matter of record. PG&E, all the power companies, Southern California, Edison, Pacific Gas and Southern California is the one in the south, and then Pacific Gas and Electric is in Northern California. They just have these generators, ground-based generators that they just turn on, and they just start spewing silver iodide particles out of it. And they do it at times when there's a wind that'll take the particles up the face of the Sierra Nevadas, and then these particles will help nucleate, will help generate more snowpack up in the Sierras and up behind the reservoirs, specifically reservoirs that are held in by dams that have hydroelectric power generators in them. That's why the power companies are interested, because you have more water in the dam and you generate more power. You see that they're doing it because it makes money, a lot of money. And that if you look at the motives chapter in my book, you'll see that, they're seeing returns of 20 to 1, like they spend $1 and get 20 back when they do this type of stuff. And so, this stuff has been going on, particularly in the West. The conventional cloud seeding industry doesn't really exist in the East, because their problem in the East is actually too much water. But in the West, the problem has always been too little water. And so the weather modifiers, the main thing that they do is generate silver iodide particles to cause precipitation and cause more rainfall. And it was really hard to find the information about the toxicity of the substance that they're routinely using, silver iodide, in the weather modification literature. Almost like 90.
Guys, there's so much incredible information on these sources. I'm so grateful to have come across these two gentlemen's conversation. Like this says it all right here. There's not a single study that proves geoengineering is safe. All this spray being safe. There's a reason as to why we aren't in the know. They didn't bring us to the table. It's clear.
98% of it, 98, 99% of it, they're just saying, well, you spray silver iodide and the biological impacts are, well, you get more rain here and then less rain over here. And, maybe the deer will migrate to where there's more rain or less rain, depending on, what they're feeling or whatever. That's not what we're asking. We're asking, what does this do to the ecology of an ecosystem? What does this do to the ecology of our environment? You're spraying a toxic substance. And, thank God, if you dig deep enough, like I did, you can pull out some reputable information on these things. And of course, it's not good. Of course, it kills like things lower down the food chain, and you can't really do that because it destroys the environment. And it's I think it's killing a lot of the trees as well. Along with the geoengineering programs. But it's just bad news, man. They're just spraying silver iodide, toxic substance, since 1947 into the environment routinely like it's nothing. And they've been getting away with it because the GE scientists, General Electric scientists, Irving Langmuir and Vonnegut, when they first made the big press explosion about weather modification, spraying things out of planes, they were using dry ice. They did that for the press.
Wow.
A month or two later, they're using silver iodide, lead iodide, whatever they want. And then by that time, of course, that's yesterday's news. Nobody's paying attention, right? See how they got away with it? And
that speaks to the types of manipulations that go around in perception management around this topic. And there's so many examples of that and the types of limited hangouts and other such things. So I guess that brings us down to the brass tacks of this issue that we're covering today. I want to get your take. I have my own thoughts about this, but I want your take on what you think, why there is this sort of renewed push and energy behind talking about geoengineering and spraying and chemtrails at this time, where this push is coming from. What does this actually mean? What are these states banning this, or at least proposing legislation? What does it really mean for the anti-chemtrail movement?
I think it's so great. Toxic. I think it's been a culmination. Like I said, when we first started seeing planes in the sky spraying things, we had no idea what that was. Like, okay, there's a plane with a...
This is fantastic. As I'm browsing this, you could even pull up state by state. That is fantastic. Send a letter to your representative. Amazing. It would be great. I hope they're accumulating the data because if they're not answering to we the people. Look at what happened on Jan 6. They demonize individuals that they had grievances they wanted addressed, and they try making an example out of those individuals. So crucial that we figure out the most effective ways. It might even be getting these letters and sending them to our sheriffs. And at the point where providing the actual evidence as to how this could be labeled crimes against humanity or even war crimes, then they would be not fulfilling their oath and potentially held legally liable for not protecting its people.
Big long line behind it. It's obviously a particulate matter, and but what does that mean? Like it's like the riddle of the Sphinx or something, But over time, people such as you, such as me, such as Dane Whittington, such as Jim Lee, such as I could go on and on, we've been coming forward with the undeniable, hardcore evidence. One of the episodes on my show on Rumble, The Abstract, is chemtrails are real, the hard evidence, and I show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways of irrefutable scientific evidence that shows that we are being sprayed.
Right.
And
100%.
I could go over that, but
irrefutable.
It's my most viewed video, so there's quite a bit of
irrefutable. Yet we're just sweeping under the rug, and we're the lab rats in this. It's not even an experiment at this point. It's been happening for generations or decades now, and they're perfecting it. So. Wow, I kind of missed what they were pulling
good information
up here.
There, but we've been compiling this information over the years. We've been persevering, James. We've been sticking to it and sticking at it and finding all their bodies. We've been finding where they've been burying all these bodies, and we've been putting the story together. And over time, this is what I always figured. Over time, more and more people become aware, and then you reach a tipping point. And then somebody like Beverly Foster comes.
All right, this is kind of unorthodox. I need a printer. Any of you guys have a printer you could send my way or help us get the funds for a printer, because I'd like to print a lot of this documentation out, read it through those means, and see about coming up with an effective way that we can, this is undeniable evidence here. The patents on what they're in fact doing should give us the evidence we need to submit this information and our concerns to the sheriffs, to our representatives, and really get the ball rolling. And I would like to get all the documentation that Tennessee passed, the governor passed there, and all these other states, because that was very chillax, a misdemeanor offense. Are you kidding me? $10,000? Are you kidding me? No, we need to start submitting here on felony charges with millions of dollars. Yeah, let's put out any business, individual, NGO, whoever, government agency, whoever's behind this. Let's bankrupt them so they cannot enact this nefarious warfare tactic any longer.
Along and knows how to organize and get people into a movement that's actually bringing this into the Overton window into conventional wisdom. Because when that's why the mainstream media just suddenly came into life. For years there, they were just completely ignoring the issue. I was watching it must have been about 4 years where they were just not covering it at all. Because I periodically search for new articles on the subject, new hit pieces. It's always a hit piece, right? But at least it's something. And when the Tennessee bill, not even before the governor, not even after the governor signed it, after it passed one of the houses, I think it maybe even had to pass another house after that. But there was a certain point where the mainstream media analysts, I guess, they figured, this thing is actually going to be signed into law. And then there's an explosion of articles, all running defense, all running interference for saying, oh no, this is not going.
Holy smokes, I think they're doing it because you're sending the letter through their webpage, so they are accumulating the data. So if our representatives in fact want to sweep it under the rug, we're acquiring the data necessary to take legal action against these freakers. It looks like it's already in existence. This is a direct call to action right here. It's all laid out for us. You can send this. I mean, it's all written. It's got the data, the information, if you want to verify before you put your name behind it, that it is, in fact, something that's aligning with your understanding, your values. If you want to hold off on this till we come out with the additional documentaries that show and bring all this evidence to light and really will drive what, in fact, is taking place home within us all to now ramp up the urgency to take these steps. We just need to do this sooner versus later. I am so grateful to have come across these groups, this information. This is such a powerful topic. The official Corbett Report Rumble channel. Guys, be sure to check that out. He's got over 20,000 followers. Let's get that. Oh, if only we were in the millions to support more, individuals like this. Once again, that you could just tell. Their heart is in the right place. Who in their right mind would want to combat this narrative? Like, really, what gain is there to be had when this big industry, this big complex is shutting it down to the point TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube is gravely censoring these topics? Now, they're being selective. I believe the other attacks on our health through the medical system, things like that, like you can't diss on vaccines to a degree to this day. I haven't pushed the envelope. I just haven't had that much engagement because we're right on the border of being banned on YouTube as we speak. So it's just, at that point, it just focus on the free speech platforms where we can speak freely. Anyway.
On, these crazy people, it's the Republicans, it's the Trump crazies, and what are they doing? They're talking about chemtrails. Oh my gosh, these people are out of their mind.
Right.
But at least they're saying something.
But you see, this is where my mind goes. Maybe I'm overly cynical, but I think that part of what is going on here is part of that limited hangout dialectic that is being used to steer the conversation in a way that will benefit the fact checkers. Because I have certainly noticed in the last few years, there's been a lot more attention towards the theoretical, we should start maybe thinking about experiments towards the idea of maybe blocking the sun and solar radiation, starting this type of dialectic essentially going in the mainstream narrative. And generally it'll be, Bill Gates has a plan to block out the sun or something like that. And it'll lead back to Harvard and those types of educational institutions that are spearheading these above board.
Yeah, that level of brainwashing, they clearly went about it, let's ask for forgiveness versus permission. But that type of brainwashing, there will be zero accountability for what they've already rolled out for decades now. Unbelievable. We are easily manipulated. And I mean, the fact that it's gotten as bad as it's gotten and we haven't addressed it, and less than 10% roughly of us are even aware as to really what's going on, just proves how easily fooled we are in this current society. However, luckily, excuse me, through the pandemic scam, it was a lot of people have woken up and it's like, whoa, like, check myself. We have been way too blindly entrusting. Now, I get it. Ideally, we live in a world where we should be able to entrust in these institutions with health care services and labels to them. But unfortunately, that's just not the reality of the world we're living in. So what is beneficial at that point? To believe the lie or start showing up inconvenient truth? It's inconvenient, but we got to do our own research. We got to vet everything. We got to question everything. That's what's healthy. That's what's sane at this point. We just need to now shift that to all these other categories. So let's just gain momentum on this one specific thing. Easy. Let's get legislation passed all over this country. And then it will be more easily for the Canadians to follow suit, Australia, just all the other countries. Let's lead by example here, folks. Let's stop the projection as though we love our family members and not be willing, especially as men, to protect our littles and our family members. Once again, you wouldn't allow a stranger to come in your home and poison your kids, right? Well, we're allowing it. So let's put a stop to that.
Out in the open programs that are, again, experimentally thinking about the possibility of engineering. I've also noticed, for example, the brouhaha surrounding Make Sunsets that got a lot of publicity recently, doing its geoengineering, essentially PR stunts of releasing balloons that will release particles into the stratosphere. And it's just done a couple of balloon releases, and that's it, guys. But that's why now it's okay to talk about geoengineering, and that's... See, they're not talking about chemtrails and spraying from planes, guys. They're talking about these balloon experiments or Harvard thinking about these types of things. So what do you think about that idea, that maybe what we are being directed towards is the ultimate limited hangout, that this is all some theoretical thing? It's not about what's actually happening right now.
Well, they've been pushing the same BS for years and years. You know, I don't even really pay attention to what they're saying, except, you know, I just look at the science history of everything and put the pieces of the puzzle together. I think what's been going on is that, yeah, they're nibbling around the edges. They're trying to get some kind of public buy-in into this thing, you know, with just little things like, oh, it's just sea salt. Oh, we're just putting a balloon up. Oh, it's just this. Oh, it's such a tiny little amount of this. There's no problem there. But every time that they even do things like that, they get such huge pushback that they can't really go anywhere. I think they've been extremely frustrated in trying to get any type of public buy-in on these things, because just the idea of it, I mean, people know how the government and corporations work. You know what I mean? You give them an inch, they take a mile, and they know. I think there's been such an explosion of awareness in recent years, especially as to how corrupt the government is and how corrupt, you know, how they're totally owned by the corporations and all this, that people are just like, you know, no, we know where you're going with this. I'm not giving you the okay on that one. So they just keep on running the same little thing, just your foot, no, nose under the tent, you know, like
exactly.
Foot in the door, and people are just like, no.
Right.
Like,
no, you're right. There is a PR battle of sorts that's taking place here. And yes, I think the public is swatting it down every time this idea is raised. The first reaction is, oh my God, no, we can never allow that to happen. Well, unfortunately, most people don't know it's already happening and has been for decades. But I think you're right.
Yes.
For me, the key takeaway of this, hey, I'm an anarchist. I cannot get excited about states' legislation that's supposedly a piece of paper that's going to protect us from stuff that's already happening, which implies that if your state doesn't have that particular piece of paper, then it's totally fine for the government to be doing it. All of these types of issues that I have philosophical problems with. But hey, to the extent that it brings absolutely anything to actual court, and hey, if somebody gets actually convicted of this, that would be a wonderful precedent to set. I'm not holding my breath for that. But it does, at the very least, as you say, it is shifting that Overton window. That conversation is changing. And this is, I think, a type of defensive move on the part of the deep state to try to deflect it towards, we're talking about those experiments and those things that people are thinking about. We're not talking about this program that's already existed, which is why this is our prime golden opportunity to be pushing this information even harder in front of people's faces. No, this is the documented history of what's already been going on that you haven't been told about, and here it is. So I think this is a grand opportunity, at the very least, for information dissemination. And as you say, people are not buying the bull that is coming from the top layers of this pathocracy anymore. People are seeing through it in record numbers. So this is the prime opportunity. Which is why I think this is great that, hey, you've got a ton of resources, not only your book, but also, as you say, the abstract videos like Chemtrails Are Real, the hard evidence. There's a lot of stuff that people can be really sinking their teeth into. So let's wrap up on that positive note, talking about the way that we can direct people towards information that matters. I want you to suggest and recommend for people who are maybe new to this subject, maybe people who haven't discovered about it yet, where should they be going for more information about this?
Well, if I don't say so myself, I think the best thing to do is read my book, Chemtrails Exposed, the New Manhattan Project, available exclusively on Amazon, hardcover, paperback, ebook, or audiobook. But there are also, lots of free resources available. I think that the two best ones, now there's two best ones out there. Geoengineeringwatch.org has always been there. And there's a lot of great information on there. That's Dave Wellington's site.
There is.
And now this zerogeoengineering.com. Let me just make sure it's down here. Zerogeoengineering.com.
Yeah.
And then, Jim Lee's website as well, Climate Viewer. And I'm sure, I have a whole bunch of websites actually listed at the end of every activist post article that I do on chemtrails. Sometimes I cover other subjects, but lately I've just been hitting the chemtrails again because of this recent movement, these recent movements for net suns and the bills in the East. And yeah, James, I don't have a whole lot of faith in government, these little papers that they shuffle around and whatnot either. But, what I'm into is this awareness. I sense a different energy in the movement. And as soon as I saw that, I just started coming and putting out, new episodes every week. And if enough people buy my book, and I'm also asking for donations, and that's all on my website and on the articles and all that. If you look at my stuff, you'll find where to donate. If I can keep doing this, I'm going to keep on putting out a new episode of The Abstract on Rumble every week about chemtrails. That's what I started doing as pretty much as soon as I became aware of this new movement. So, I'd like to think that I'm somebody coming forward with a lot of good information as well. And there's, because you got to watch yourself in this space. There's a lot of BS out there too, just tons and tons of disinformation agents. But at the end of every activist post article that I do on chemtrails, and there's been one a week recently, you go down to the bottom and I have about 10 different websites listed. And I think those are all the best. Those are the best chemtrail informational, geoengineering informational websites that I have found. So you can look over those and talk to those people if you want. But I think the big movement that's really going on right now is Americans, the number 4, cleanatmosphere.com. And they apparently make it very easy to get involved. There's like a little button that just says get involved. You just click on that and they just start you on your way. You want to be a part of this movement? I think right now that's where you go. I think especially if you're in the East and in any one of these states, Ohio, Missouri, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Rhode Island, Kentucky, South Dakota, New Hampshire, and then even Illinois, which is the one that's actually not really going on right now. But anywhere in the East, I think, or even in the West. I mean, let's do it everywhere. If you want to get involved with Renette Senum in the West, her website is saveourskies.org, if I'm not mistaken. It's on the if there's a link to it in the abstract episode where I interview her, and that was also an article on activistpost.com. So there's links to all her stuff there as well. And those are the best sources that I know of. And I think we have a lot of really great information that we've been compiling over the course of more than a decade that we can really use to just ram right down their throats. And, I'd like to think that my book is the best one to really understand the whole picture here. I think a lot of people in these movements in the East have not read my book. I can kind of sense this from, the videos I'm watching and the things that I'm reading and whatnot. And, I think that we'd be better off as a movement. I spent over 10 years, over $10,000, upwards of 100 interlibrary loans. I made thousands of photocopies. I had, like my science advisor who had a Q clearance with the Department of Energy. I had access to the largest book depository in Northern California, as well as UC Berkeley. And so I was fastidious putting this thing together. I was obsessed for years. Sometimes I would work like 16, 18, 20-hour days just in a frenzy putting this thing together. But it's not put together in a haphazard fashion. It's put together in a very logical fashion. It unfolds very well to the reader, all the information. And so
holy smokes, that book right behind him there, I might even just order that up to walk around when someone's just like, oh, contrails. It's just like, I might just hand them the book, to be honest, or we'll flip through it real quick. Hopefully it's got some visual cues. It's so important. We're so visual. I get it. It's not our job to wake everyone up and save the world. I just know what we're capable of together. And once again, evil wins when good people do nothing. I'm so grateful for these gentlemen. Be sure to check out all the links below. Let's kick off some motivational music. I don't even know what you'd call that. So, little bit of a recap. It might be a little too loud. With the level of censorship on this particular topic, and not more of us picking up the slack, sending out this information ourselves, well, what's the outcome gonna look like? This war tactic will continue as a result, and it's gonna wreak havoc on our health. Let's go to our sheriffs. Let's go to our representatives. It's enough of that crazy tunage. I tell you what. I'm so grateful for this opportunity and free speech platforms to share all this. Once again, Americans for a Clean Atmosphere.com. Links below. Geoengineeringwatch.org. Stay tuned. We're going to dive into this full-length documentary here. It's going to bring all the evidence, beyond the evidence we need to fully absorb the truth behind that elephant in our skies. I'm more than likely going to break that up into 2 episodes, roughly 1 hour and 1 hour. With my bantering, it's probably going to end up close to 2-hour episodes. Who the frick knows? I mean, after all, they are censoring this. Why? That says it all. They would laugh. They would sit back and laugh if they weren't doing this. They wouldn't infringe on our First Amendment rights unless it was a tactic they're invested in. That is the only reason why they would infringe on our First Amendment. And think about that. The fact all these platforms are tyrannically oppressing truth from getting out, that just ramps up the sense of urgency between all of us freedom fighters to pick up that slack. Okay, they censor, let's make it go viral. Let's bring more people to Rumble and free speech platforms. Support us on X, Truth Social, Rumble, any podcast app. We're on Spotify. It'll be audio only. We just don't have the budget to kick off video and things like that there. I mean, these 2 clips, my gosh, censored. Let's not allow this continue any longer. It's just going to become harder. More people aren't going to be able to acknowledge, for frick's sakes, the neurological impacts of aluminum nanoparticles within our body. It's getting into our brains. It's causing Alzheimer's and dementia. We'll lose the cognitive ability to even acknowledge that the chemtrails are working and the cause of all this. It's so crucial. This geoengineering.com, another amazing source. This as well. I'm amped. Let's go. 2025. Could you even imagine as to the function we'd gain, the enjoyment, the life force back in our bodies? See, I struggle for words. Like, what's up with that? I'm not that freaking old. I shouldn't have Alzheimer's already and memory issues. For my sake, don't you care about me? Do it for me. Let's put a stop to this. No, it's not about me. I'm doing this for you. And I know what we could do collectively. This would be so easily fixed collectively together. Should we do a throwback sound? Why not? For today's read, Jesus is calling. Let's read, or let's answer the call. We are January 2nd. You know what? There's one for the month. January. Ooh, it's scripture from Jeremiah 29:11 states, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you." Wow. Could the armor of God also protect us from a lot of this warfare and keep the function necessary to effectively combat it? I'd venture to say that's worth giving a try. Plans to give you hope and a future. Wow. January 2nd reads, "Relax in my healing presence. As you spend time with me, your thoughts tend to jump ahead to today's plans and problems. Bring your mind back to me for a refreshment and a renewal. Let the light of my presence soak into you as you focus your thoughts on me. It goes hand in hand. When we absorb stuff like this and then we seek that from him, then we have the peace, the energy, the passion to properly address these type of evils in the world we live in. Once again, I would rather this not be the reality we're faced with. I would rather this not be a genuine threat. We cannot allow the fear behind all of that to hinder us from addressing these type of threats on behalf of our loved ones. So it all goes hand in hand. This sacrifice of time pleases me and strengthens you. Do not skimp on our time together. Resist the clamor of tasks waiting to be done. You have chosen what is better, and I will not be taken away from you. There's 2 biblical references for the day. Challenge you, check it out. We got Psalm 105:4, Luke 10:39 through 42. Let's not be disheartened. This is not a doom and gloom situation. What is what is. Let's just show up to stop the continuum of this compounding. It's like any given day being out there, even on a heavily sprayed day. Is that just going to end us? No. But it's having a compounding impact as we absorb more of this toxic material within our bodies, which I do believe is one of the leading causes to all this disease, illness, cognitive dysfunction, low energy, low testosterone in men, 100%. That's a grave issue that I myself am even dealing with, and it's very detrimental to the function for a man when you have low T. There's a reason why Western medicine more so wants to prescribe you SSRIs and all these other things and not the substance that would actually breathe health and life back into individuals. Don't get me started. Western medicine, big problem there too. But we need more health of our health to address all those issues. So I do believe as we raise our function, it's just going to be easier to address everything else. Bring it on. I can't wait. Don't forget to just lean into God, our loving creator, that spiritual essence, that light, that love. We should be the most secure beings, even with all this going on, whether we become effective in it or not. It's incredibly freeing to establish, but I do know with the hindering of this mortal experience and body and pain and lethargic brain fog, it hinders the ability really to even lean into them and achieve that spiritual clarity to where that you could put all this trust, you could show up and fulfill your responsibility, but put all this trust that, hey, at the end of the day, I'm not dismayed that this is continuing because it isn't my job. It's not my responsibility. So it's a balancing act. And one day I can move the pendulum clear over to here to where I can healthily shoulder way more burden and show up. And then sometimes I got to weekly put it clear over on the other side where I'm just leaning into trusting in him. Everything is okay. The beautiful part of all this challenge in this era we're dealing with is there's just more opportunity for growth. I hope and pray we all tap into that. I love y'all so much. Please be sure to check out our affiliations. This is not a financially viable adventure. I'm going in debt. I don't know what the future holds. I'm sitting here racking my brain, kind of pumping the brakes on even producing content and thinking, well, what else, God, do you want me tapped into in this existence? And considering a great many things. But until these things are addressed, I can't think of anything else, especially in my debilitated state, to tap into in this moment. So even I'm trying to get things sorted out, but I would greatly appreciate your support, whether it's directly or indirectly through the affiliations where it's mutually beneficial. It's beneficial to the companies and what they're doing on our behalfs. It's beneficial to you because through the affiliation, you're getting discounts on products. And there's a whole slew from health. Just check and scroll in the description below. I'm not going to go through them all right now, as I should, but I don't want to bore you with commercials or advertising. It's truly not what we want to be about. In fact, if you have any input and other means that you feel would be effective in making this more a long-term viable option for me, whether it's kicking off Patreon programs or better advertising or connections, even other casters or individuals, content creators that have bigger followings, please help us set up those connections. We want to have a great impact. We want to move the ball in such a way that our society is more so thriving. That'll be a little bit of a spoiler. There is an expert that's in that clip that she has done proper assessments with her modern technological advances. And she didn't talk about it much in the clip on that we'll be playing, but I know that particular interview goes way more in depth. And that's what's awesome about diving into this information. We can specifically look these things up and these individuals up and see what all they're tapped into. But anyway, she had an assessment where not a single mouse should be going hungry ever at this point, or not clean water accessible. For frick's sakes, I don't even have clean water right here in the city of border of Mesa Gilbert, Arizona. But obviously there's even individuals that don't have access to running water at all, and that is downright unacceptable. The only reason why we have that level of challenge is due to the evil that is in this world and the lack of acknowledgement and the lack of pushback of good individuals. Are we even that good if we're that self-absorbed? Interesting. I've been projecting as though I've been a good individual, but I haven't been fulfilling. I haven't really walked the walk and showed up on behalf of others. So that is a life worth living. 100%. Okay, I'm just a rambling man at this point. I'll let you go. Can't wait till next time. Be sure to stay tuned. Share this next episode when we kick it off with everyone you know. Bring people into the live. Let's get some engagement. But more importantly, just share this content. We just need it out so we can address this issue. May our loving Creator bless you this wonderful day. This is the only day we're going to get this entire year. I don't know, now I'm just being silly. It's just, let's not overburden ourselves and really absorb the moments we got. And I really appreciate this moment with you. Until next time, take care.